Hey, what's up guys? It's Rick with the Digital Divide. Now, this is a series I've been wanting to make for a while, but I keep getting distracted or busy, life is happening, so I haven't been able to make it yet, but I'm going to make a three-part series about forgotten games. This is mostly going to focus on games that were in development but never released to the public. The first game I want to talk about is StarCraft Ghost. Now, this is a franchise developed by Blizzard, one of my favorite developers, at least they used to be. Now, if you're unfamiliar, StarCraft is a real-time strategy game that is hugely popular, but it's really best played with a mouse and keyboard due to the complicated nature of the gameplay here. There's a lot of stuff that you need to keep track of, so it's not ideal for consoles. Blizzard wanted to get more invested in the console space, and at the time, the three consoles that were out were the PlayStation, Xbox, and GameCube, so development started on a new game built within the StarCraft franchise for these consoles, and that came in the form of StarCraft Ghost. This was a departure in the kind of games that Blizzard typically would make. This was a third-person perspective action game with a lot of stealth elements thrown in, and the game was almost entirely complete until it was canceled, and there are a number of reasons for that, but ultimately the game was so far along that if you know where to look, you can download ROMs and play it on actual hardware if you're so inclined to do that and check it out for yourself. You know, the game wasn't completely done, but it was far enough in development that when it was announced that the game was being canceled, it really blew me away. It just didn't make a ton of sense. The game has some really cool stealth elements where you're sniping people from a distance. You can switch to night vision or thermal and drag bodies and hide them in corners if you want, or you can play the game completely as just a guns blazing action game. There was a lot of variety to the gameplay, a lot of variety to the stage design. The game certainly could use a lot of polish, but it had so much potential, and I was kind of really bummed out when they canceled this one because I'm a huge fan of StarCraft in general. And I was looking forward to this. I remember when they announced it, I was super excited about it. You've got this really cool stealth cloak ability. The graphics were really impressive considering the hardware that it was released on at the time. What you're looking at now is from the Xbox version of the game, the original Xbox version of the game. Next game I want to talk about is Half-Life, specifically the Dreamcast port of this game. Now, unlike some other games on this list, this game was 100% done. Like, every part of this game was completed, but they never released the game, and it just baffles me as to why that never happened, because they put a lot of work into it. The game featured brand new character models, improved effects and lighting, and it was a step up from the original PC release. All of that said, the game was fairly old by the time they completed the port. I believe Half-Life 2 had already been out for a while at that point. But you'd think that Valve would want to at least recoup some of their development expenses by just putting the game out there and seeing how it does, but they never did. The game was completely canceled and abandoned. Despite being completely finished, they never put it out, and towards the end of the game, this footage you're looking at specifically is towards the outside area of the game. The frame rate really, really struggles and can sometimes dip into the teens or even single digits. So maybe that had something to do with it, but ultimately, you know, we've seen similar ports with similar performance issues that still got released, so it's a big question mark for me. The next game I want to talk about is Gears of War 3, specifically the PlayStation 3 port of this game. And yes, there was a PlayStation 3 version of this game in development. Now, the Gears of War franchise was created and developed by Epic Games. It was not created by Xbox, as a lot of people think. But at some point, Epic Games decided they wanted to scale back their game development side of business and focus on Unreal Engine because that was their bread and butter. That was where they were making the majority of their money. So because of how popular Gears was on the Xbox, Microsoft bought the Gears of War IP from them. But before that happened, Epic was deep into development of a port for the PlayStation 3, and this is what you're looking at here. It was super early in development, so all of the icons still have the Xbox button layout, and the game is horribly unoptimized. Again, this was super early. This was like an alpha build of the port. So a lot of the time, the frame rate was like in the teens. So on this footage, if you look in the upper right-hand side of the screen, you can see the abysmal frame rate there, and that'll stay there for the duration of this footage. But again, this was super impressive considering how notoriously difficult the PlayStation 3 was to develop for. The fact that they got this game up and running on actual PlayStation 3 hardware so quickly makes me wonder how good this version of the game would have been if they had the development resources and time to properly optimize it for Sony's platform. So everything you're seeing is running in real time. You can see it's only running at like 18, 19, 20 frames a second currently. There are parts of the game where it does maintain a solid 30 frames per second, but this game was never optimized for the PlayStation 3. This was kind of a proof in concept. They just wanted to see if they could get this game up and running on the PlayStation 3 hardware, because it was growing in popularity and starting to match, and even towards the end of that console generation, outsell the Xbox 360 globally. So they wanted to explore the idea of possibly porting some of these Gears games over to Sony's platform, and then Microsoft bought them out, and that obviously never happened. Now, the further along you get into the game, you'll start to see these glitches, and the further into the game you see, the more frequently they occur, to the point where the game becomes unplayable. And that happens a lot, but it's still just so mind-blowing to me to see this game running on PlayStation hardware. The next game I want to talk about is Scalebound. This is a game that was in development by Platinum Games, and it was originally intended to be an Xbox One exclusive, and it looked so cool.
Holy shit. Like a fair fight, just one of you against all of us. Let's go, big guy!
Much like some of the other games on this list, this game was very, very far into development. It was not complete, but so much work had been put into it. But at this point in Microsoft's history with gaming, they were more interested in delving into multiplayer-focused games. And they asked Platinum Games, who had only done single-player stuff like Bayonetta, for example, to incorporate multiplayer aspects into this game, and they were really struggling to do that because they had never done it before. On top of that, this was the first next-generation game that they were developing for, so they were also learning the Xbox One hardware at the same time. So ultimately, though, the game ended up getting canceled, which is a real shame because I think it looks so good. It looks so much fun. And to this day, Microsoft still owns the IP for this franchise, so if they wanted to, they could bring this game back, completely revamp the graphics, and re-release it if they wanted to, and Platinum has said that they're willing to do that if Microsoft is, so I hope that's something that happens in the future. Well, that's going to do it for part 1 of my Forgotten Game series, guys. Please let me know in the comments below if you have any recommendations for part 2. I would really appreciate that. As always, thanks for watching.